Real quick before we get into this episode of Fantasy News, I have officially lost my first copyright dispute with Netflix. Despite my review/commentary of Rebel Moon 2 being absolutely a review/commentary, they have decided to escalate this to the point where I would have to get legal to put this Rebel Moon video here on my YouTube channel and risk a strike that could then put my career in jeopardy. So instead, it's going over to Patreon for $1, and if you would like to see Kayla and I's review/commentary of groundbreaking grain-focused cinema, you can go ahead and get it for just $1. Here's a clip. What's her name?
Do that.
They had planned this assassination. They were like, should we get all the witnesses out and also make sure there's not the band? No, no, no.
Keep the band.
He went up to the band before he was like, well, we're stabbing. Really get into that crescendo. The violinists are still going in the background. Oh, no. They just heard her dramatic footsteps and went, go, 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 go. He saw Old Boy. There's gonna be an elevator opening Old Boy thing. Do it. There it is. Now do the side shot and watch her fight down the hall.
There we go.
There we go. And we're actually gonna be trying to make lemonade out of this situation because Kayla and I, if enough of you all are interested, are going to probably just do once a month movie reviews/commentaries over on Patreon, where we don't have to worry about this kind of fraudulent claims disrupting the creative process. So if you'd like to be a part of that, just $1 every month, right on over that way. Now, without any further ado, let's jump into the fantasy news. Welcome, welcome, welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy News that I would say is a bit inspirational because of our first story of the day, and that is going to be the SPFBOs have announced their winner for the year. The self-published fantasy book off started with 300 entrants, narrowed it down to 10 finalists, and finally one was chosen, and that would be Murder at Spindle Manor by Morgan Stang, described as mysteries are abound in Spindle Manor. For Huntress Isabel Argowell, the countryside inn is the last stop in a deadly hunt. Armed with a gas lamp and guns, she tracks an insidious beast that wears the skin of its victims, mimicking them perfectly. 10 guests reside within Spindle Manor tonight, and the creature could be any one of them. Confined by a torrential thunderstorm and running out of time, Isabel has until morning to discover the liar, or none of them, including her, will make it out alive. That is a sensational pitch. Not only am I going to be reading Murder in Spindle Manor because it's the SPFBO winner, and I try to do that every year, but also, yes, hello, thriller, fantasy, murder mystery coming into one in a Clue-like location. I'm 1000% down.
I just love a good mystery.
And from my understanding, Morgan Stang is a member of the Goblin Horde here, so I just want to say, if you're watching this video, mega congratulations. I can't wait to get to it. Hot damn. But that is going to take us so naturally right into our cover reveals of the day. And can you believe who they're coming from? Patrick Leo, becoming a staple of the industry himself, has revealed for us a Dirge For Cascius, Part 1 by Calum Lott and with art by John Devlin. What I like about this cover is the overall composition. It gives me like ancient Greek tragedy, but floating in the void of space vibes, and I'm down for that without question. The only thing I have is the color choice I feel could be a little better, but that's a small complaint. And yeah, this one looks sick as hell. And the next cover release, well, would you look who's bringing that to us here too? In collaboration with the Broken Binding and Christopher Racchio himself, Patrick Leo has been working on some new covers for the Sun Eater series, and we have just gotten a look at the cover for Howling Dark, and oh my lord, that is a good looking cover here. I can't wait to get this collection from Broken Binding. If you do not send them, I will find you. And with Broken Binding taking on Sun Eater and Malazan and doing their midnight editions of Grace of Kings recently, I just have to say, even as someone who's like technically your competition, I guess, I just took my hat off to you. You're doing a great job. And in just some quickie Sun Eater news, we also got a new cover for Queen Amid Ash, which is one of the Tales of Sun Eater books. And yeah, I think this one's an improvement and looks hella nice. But we're gonna take things down a notch, take off the character for a minute, and now talk about some very serious book industry news, because we don't typically get to see beyond the veil of the giant wall publishers have put up to keep us from seeing the detailed numbers around our favorite authors in terms of what's selling, who's making how much money, etc. But because of Penguin Random House v. the DOJ, some of that information has finally been made available to the public, and while a whole lot of people knew the industry was heading in a certain direction, just how far in that direction things seem to have gone is incredible, and it's gonna send me on a little bit of a rant/tangent. And before I get into that, just a quick big thank you to Ella Griffin, who put together a lot of this information in a great write-up. If you want to see any of the sources of any of the news we cover here today, of course, link down below. Let's get into it. Sticking with just the pure facts of what's been made available to the public, it is remarkable how few authors are responsible for such a gargantuan percentage of sales on the market. The DOJ itself collected data on 58,000 titles and found that 90% of them sold fewer than 2,000 copies, with half failing to sell a dozen. Emphasizing this extreme disparity, when asked about how many authors had actually managed to sell over 500,000 copies of their books in a single year, the CEO of Penguin Random House, Madeline McIntosh, said, "My understanding is that it is about 50. 50 authors across the publishing industry who during this 4-year period sold more than 500,000 units in a single year? Yes." If you're wondering why you or I should care about this, something that Ella gets into in her write-up, as well as many other things worth learning about, is that publishers are no longer incentivized to try and find and publish the next great read. They're incentivized to find the next trending read. This comes with a greater emphasis on putting their marketing dollars and substantial advances behind one specific type of person. And I really want to emphasize this point here. Give me a minute. Could I please do pepperoni, turkey, and what the hell happened to the $5 footlong? That was $20 just for some extra meat. All right. Publishers are not incentivized to find you the greatest author, your next true amazing read, and instead, what they are trying to do is publish celebrities. I'm fully aware I am an influencer on a platform currently sitting in front of my own book, which you can now purchase at shop.wraithmark.com, the physical format, go right ahead, link down below, talking about how messed up this situation is getting for platforms needed for sales. I'm fully willing to acknowledge that. But just because I'm partaking in a system does not mean I necessarily approve of it. If I didn't partake in every system going on in society right now, I wouldn't have this job, I wouldn't have this home, and I'd be standing naked on the street without a phone. Everything we have learned from this case points to the publishing industry not only having long been much more just dependent on finding cash cows than we're willing to admit, but is more and more so leaning into that practice because of threats from larger players stepping in the space like Amazon. Their profit margins are being cut into, and the celebrity savior is the business model that is becoming more prevalent. I don't believe it'll be an unpopular opinion to say it bothers me the idea that the marketing push, the funds, the dedication from the publisher goes to the person who's predisposed to have already had success, and that the difficulty for finding natural, actual success based off of real writing that people are finding and promoting is becoming even rarer. My mind is strangely drawn to the demystification of Hollywood that happened over the decades, where before it was seen as this gleaming palace, and now in After all, the dirty laundry of Hollywood's come out and pretty much everyone knows how that industry runs because of the internet. It's just seen as another industry, yes, with a lot of glamour and celebrity in itself, but the same thing seems to be happening for publishing here. I don't see these houses like I used to as these gatekeepers of quality who did their best to take the next great American writer and put them before us all, and instead it seems to be far more just like every other industry, dependent on profits, and the mystique around their industry was probably a really big part of what made those gatekeepers so crucial. I hate to say it, but I'm also kind of happy to see a lot of people, at least in the years I've been covering this stuff, from the trad publishing space move into their own independent space. Not just authors, but editors and agents who would previously only ever be caught working with the trad, big boys, now are happy to lend their talents to genuinely talented authors who are finding their own success. But then there's the drawback there. Even in the independent space, success needs to build success, and authors are now required to be celebrities in a sense on social media to be able to compete in an only kind of even playing field. If it sounds like I'm not necessarily coming towards like a solution, I don't have one. How much more severe this situation could get seems really scary to me. Granted, there are a couple upsides I want to acknowledge. Examples of authors actually kind of gaining some power here, because with these publishers so dependent on their big whales, when those whales make noise, real change can happen. We've seen something similar with Sanderson now kind of twisting Audible's arm. They're in a similar situation with him, and Stephen King coming before the government to actually speak against his publisher, and they weren't really able to do anything about that. But that is obviously, in the big picture, small instances of good and a trend towards the negative. The only other positive side to this I can see is that the indie publishing scene is making more and more sense to a greater number of creatives. Don't get me wrong, it has its drawbacks as well, but you are not going to end up signing away any of your rights, and instead it's gonna rely on your own marketing know-how for finding your audience, which fortunately is getting easier with more shows like this one popping up all over the internet and people asking for indie authors to send in their works. Yes, the publishing industry has been on fire since before anyone alive watching this video was born. That doesn't mean it's not still in a moment of extreme flux. A moment meaning like the accumulation of a couple of decades of industry changes now adding up and coming together. But what I really want to end this on and say to you all is just know that now more than ever, if you're someone who's going, I don't want to read indie stuff, I want trad published, they're not exactly trying to find the next great book that hopefully can be a bestseller if it finds its audience. And instead, they are trying to put in front of you what you've probably already seen. And if you want to discover something truly special, great, and new, look into some lesser light shown on corners for the speculative fiction genre. And I've been trying to do that more and more here on the channel, and I will continue to do so. I just think it's important we all stay informed as consumers. This was a little bit of speculation on my side, quite a lot of facts. Do with it what you will. I really do want to hear from you all, especially because my audience tends to be more open to indie books and stuff, on changes you've noticed happening and just marketing around you or where you found your great read. But especially if you're an old head in the audience who's been going to bookstores since before the internet was around, how have your reading habits changed? And have you kept an open mind to some of the alternatives to you? But before we get into some Game of Thrones video game news, a quick word from today's sponsor. But this video is brought to you by Blinkist. I know we certainly love talking about science fiction and fantasy here on the channel, but believe it or not, Kayla and I do occasionally read outside the genres. Shocking, I know. Kayla's been reading Sapiens and I've been dabbling into animal moves to help my back problems. We are literate people. I sound defensive. The problem that arises, as I believe with most couples that read a lot, is we don't always have time to check out what the other person really loves, yet we still want to understand what they're talking about. Thankfully, Blinkist is here to make sure that you can get the gist of a book without having to commit to fully reading it. To be clear, this is not a replacement for reading a book, and no one should treat it as such. Think of it as like watching a YouTube video essay about a movie you haven't watched. You're not going to go tell people you then watched that movie, but it makes it so you can probably understand the conversation around it a little bit better in context. Blinkist has over 6,600 nonfiction titles for you to dabble your feet on into so that you can keep up with any conversations that may be happening. And it's presented in a podcast format so that in roughly 15 minutes, you'll be up to date. For these nonfiction books, they boil down a lot of the talking points points to what they call blinks, so that while you're getting chores done around the house, you can better prepare to continue that conversation with your loved one. Or just liked one. Not your enemies though. Don't use this for your enemies. They're not worth your blinks. And maybe the best upgrade they've presented recently, they now have blink spaces, where you can create a space with friends or family and add, share, and recommend titles from the Blinkist library all in one place within the app. And even better, all members of a shared space can access all titles in the space with or without a Blinkist premium subscription. Kind of becomes like a shared hub for you to discuss the ideas within a book. My actual preferred preference for using Blinkist would be to go back to a book I've already read, but maybe it was like 5 years ago, and then catch myself up on like the full, oh yeah, oh right, that, oh, got it. So if you're like me and just have too many books crammed into your mind, or a TBR that never seems to end, yet you want to be able to appreciate something that someone in your life absolutely loves, be sure to check out my link in the description down below and start your 7-day free trial for Blinkist today. And if you'd like, get 25% off their annual premium subscription. Nexon, who you may know from their recent hit The Finals, has officially been tapped to create an MMORPG for the Game of Thrones franchise that we do not know a whole lot about yet, aside from it likely story-wise is going to be taking place around season 4 or 5. I know I just went on this long rant about how the Game of Thrones IP needs to stay like really focused and yada yada yada. I do believe in all of that in terms of adaptation for the screen. Like a video game is still for a screen, but you know what I mean, like shows and movies. This, it's too early for me to have strong opinions on one way or the other, and I don't want to be performative for you. I will say, The Finals has certainly pulled a whole lot of my friends away from playing Rainbow Six Siege frustratingly for me. No resentment here, just saying. So it seems they can make an attention-getting game. Whether or not they're the right fit for an MMO Game of Thrones game, it's too soon to tell, so I'd call this a coin flip for the future. But that takes us to our quickie news for the upcoming Neuromancer adaptation coming down the road over Apple TV+, still the worst named streaming service in existence. And that is because Callum Turner has been tapped to play Case, the main protagonist for Neuromancer, and unfortunately, I'm not familiar with pretty much any of Callum's work, though I'm really excited to see what he can bring to this adaptation of what was a monolithic book for the cyberpunk genre. And then in the final piece of news, before we get into some truly mind-blowing fan news, a whole new audio recording for all 7 Harry Potter books is officially being worked on with over 100 actors. It's looking to release in 2025, and of course will be an Audible exclusive, because why wouldn't it be? And I'm just gonna put this here because I want to future-proof this video a little bit. This just in, hasn't happened yet, but will. J.K. Rowling said something weird and wrong around this news. Just doing my due diligence. And in some fun science fiction news, the original model of the Starship Enterprise from the 1960s TV series Star Trek has been found. The owner apparently just thought they had a pretty good copy, but eventually found out that it was the one Gene Roddenberry had owned. And of course, the great mystery of where it was found is answered with just a storage unit. God, why can't it be a safe or a vault? It'd be so much cooler if it was that. I also just found it kind of interesting that it's made of wood. Piece of science fiction memorabilia so old, it's not 3D printed or sculpted out of clay or whatever they do now. It's wood. And then in the final piece of news for the day, an absolutely mind-blowing Berserk Fan adaptation is in the work here on YouTube. No, it's not related to that one we covered a few months ago that had some sketchiness around us, and instead, over on the YouTube channel Arch, a full episode 1 for a season 2 attempting to recapture the animation style of the first season of the Berserk anime has come, and they've just said you'll hear from us again when episode 2 is finished. Such a baller move, and yes, it's got some rough edges, it's a fan adaptation, but this is mind-blowingly well put together. If you are a Berserk fan at all, please check them out in the links down below. Super impressive and worth your time. I'm so happy I could even bring this to like a couple more Berserk fans. Just chillingly good.
And today's Indie Pub promo is The Dark Heart of Redemption, written by Darren M. Hanshaw, pitched as for those who like epic fantasy, military fantasy, engineering, neurodiverse characters, and husband and wife teams. Pyramid, the great heart of redemption, lies under siege by tribal invaders that threaten to destroy the very civilization that the Dominions have created. The engineer, Actaeon, leads a force of Raydelians from the south, where they pause to investigate the secrets of abandoned Travail in search of aid for the battle to come. At the same time, the new princess of Raydel, Isandre, sails down the River of Arches with her Thyrian allies to attack from the Great Sea to the west. One thing is certain, in Redemption, everything comes with a cost.
This has just been your latest episode of Fantasy News. Thank you to Blinkus for sponsoring today's video, and if you would like to get notified when the definitive edition combining the rewrite of books 1 and 2 of the Lawful Time series goes live, just check out the Kickstarter link down below, and you'll be one of the first in line to get one like the super limited versions. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and maybe do some monthly watch-alongs with Kayla and I for some schlocky films. And you can get Neon Ghosts at shop.wraithmark.com and not have Amazon take 30% of our profit. Thank you so much, everybody. Goodbye!